Long time no see. Somewhat. Let's see if this is working before we go too far into it. On the wrong thing. No, I'm on the right thing. Hello, hello, hello. All right. I think that everything is working. And we're here for a retro review. It has been a minute. Long story short, I said I was strictly doing ROH reviews, and I am somewhat doing that still. I've been very busy, and so it's just, we're in a weird time period in what I want to do with YouTube videos. And I'm not going to dwell into it too much. The basis I will give is I enjoy doing the ROH reviews and talking about ROH because I genuinely like ROH, the history of ROH. I know that the ROH era that we're in now isn't the most flamboyant and greatest, but it's still something that I watch and like to talk about. And more so, and most importantly, because not a lot of people talk about it, and I like that I'm kind of in that rare field. So I want to point that out. That's why I enjoy talk about ROH and have somewhat fun talk about ROH. Now you look at the outside world of wrestling, you're like, you are insane for saying that. Because, again, like I said, nobody really talks about ROH. Everything's about WWE and AEW. And just the environment and the talking space when it comes to WWE and AEW is just so different and convoluted and complicated. If you say something about something, you're wrong, you're an idiot, everybody hates you. You have to pick a side. And I am someone that is in the middle. I like both. There's some things that I'd like to change about both sides, obviously. But just overall, the environment is somewhat toxic, in my opinion, and I just don't like partaking in that at the moment. Maybe there's a time period where I do enjoy it. Like, to be honest, if I'm being honest, the last WWE video I filmed was talking about Backlash 2025, and I went into that show thinking I was going to enjoy it. I kind of did, but it just wasn't really up to par. Some of these shows that have happened afterwards have been somewhat decent, but it's just, overall, I haven't really enjoyed talking about it. And the other thing that I talk about on the channel, being basketball and the NBA, I'm a Grizzlies fan, and we had a terrible playoffs. We got fucking swept. That is the simplest way to put it. And the team that beat us ended up winning the title. So I envy that. I'm salty about that. It's somewhat the same thing in the world of the NBA, in the discourse, but I can at least say that the product and the things that are happening and the offseason, the transaction we got, were actually interesting and noteworthy. Now we're in August where nothing is really happening, and I haven't talked about any of that on the channel, and so it would just be weird for me to jump right back into it. But overall, I enjoy what's actually happened and happening in the NBA, and we're in a good world in that sense, but it's just something that I don't necessarily want to talk about right now. What I want to talk about is ROH, Ring of Honor Wrestling. And again, I might be crazy for saying that and thinking that and doing that, but so be it. Now, the thing with the retro reviews as well is I liked doing the retro reviews, but a lot of the damn shows that I had reviewed were shows that I had already watched before. I don't know how many of these shows that I have reviewed that I hadn't seen prior to already reviewing it. So it kind of took away some of the luster of it, but I felt like it was important or somewhat good shows to talk about and have a discourse about. And so it kind of, again, like I said, kind of already watched, and it's just kind of, I've watched a whole lot of wrestling. There's some things that I haven't, but the things that are interesting to talk about, I've probably seen. That is what I'm getting at there. So from a retro review standpoint and wanting to watch something new, it's going to be difficult to have a happy ground. So the thing that we're at now, the point that we're at now, I'm sorry that we're 5 minutes in and have not dwelled into this show, this review. The point that we're at now, for the time being, and maybe for the future, maybe forever, who knows, I'm just going to talk about Ring of Honor on the channel. When it's AEW pay-per-view weeks, which there's one coming up next weekend, I believe. Might be the week. I think it's next weekend. For the time being, I want to talk about Ring of Honor Wrestling because that is what I enjoy talking about. Again, I know I'm somewhat crazy and wanting to do that and thinking that way, but that's just how we're going to do it. Now, that being said, there was a bit of a hole, a bit of a, empty spot in my heart because one of the greatest things to happen in Ring of Honor history was the FTR and Briscoes trilogy, and I'd already covered the first two shows on the channel, and then I put a pause and just did current ROH reviews. Today, we're filling that hole. We're completing number 3. Today, we're reviewing Final Battle 2022, the FTR Briscoes third matchup of the trilogy. I needed to do it done. I'm sorry to the people that wanted the Hell in the Cell 2022 review and to complete the Cody and Seth trilogy, but there's a slight chance that rivalry is renewed soon if you listen to the rumors online. But that's besides the point. So I also felt that it was somewhat important to cover this show because I've covered 2023 and onward ROH, a.k.a. the TK era, and this is the last show that I needed to do to complete that. So we're 6 minutes and 35 seconds in, and that's the intro. So I should update on the channel because I haven't dwelled into it too much. I felt better now than never. So there is that. So we're here to talk about Final Battle 2022, December 10th, 2022. Before we get too deep into it, what happened that week in AEW? And what happened in AEW from Death Before Dishonor to Final Battle? Now, the obvious thing that happened was Brawl Out. It is something that has been discussed in thousands and thousands of YouTube videos, think pieces, etc. I'm not gonna, because that's been the case, I don't really want to keep talking about it. It is the most important thing to happen in AEW history. You could argue and make other things, but I just feel that as of right now, is the most important thing to happen in AEW history, just because of the chaos that happened out of it and the different things that came out of it and where the starting point is and what happened. I just think that way with it. But I'm mainly going to talk about the things that happened on screen that came out of it. So, in short, CM Punk was the interim champion, lost it to Jon Moxley in a title unification bout, and then rematched him at All Out and won the World Championship back. Then Brawl Out happened, etc., and he was hurt. The title had to get vacated, and Jon Moxley won it back. And MJF, who returned at All Out, ended up winning the Casino ladder match, which, this is a side note, that matchup really pissed me off at the time because 6 of the competitors in that match were in tag teams. It was the Lucha Bros, Wheeler Yuta Claudio of the Blackpool Combat Club, and Roosh and Andrade. I think Dante Martin was in that match, and then MJF came out as the Mystery Joker, Devil. Oh, good. Sorry to bring that back up. But that matchup at the time, and somewhat still now, kind of pissed me off because the whole match is tag teams. But I understand the rationale and what they needed to do. They needed to get MJF to win that match, but they needed him to get that match and win that match. That way he could win the World Championship. So in this time period at AEW, it is the very start of MJF's long World Heavyweight title reign. The women's title scene, Thunder Rosa was out with injury, and it ended up it was somewhat of the same thing that was going on in the men's division, just a whole fight. Fracas didn't really come out of it. So Thunder Rosa was champion. We had an interim champion in Toni Storm, and she ended up losing it to Jamie Hayter for her first AEW women's title reign. And then Thunder Rosa just ended up being stripped of the championship. So Toni Storm and Jamie Hayter's reign ended up being actual reigns and not looked at as interim. Another title reign to talk about. Orange Cassidy started his first international title reign. I think they still were calling it the All-Atlantic Championship at the time, but that name did not last, and we've come to know it as the international title. And again, this was the start of that reign. And one more title to talk about, the Tag Team Championship. Swerve on Our Glory, one of my favorite tag teams that was short-lived. Their tag team title reign ended at the hands of the Acclaimed and Swerve and Glory compete on this show in a matchup that is effing interesting to talk about. Now, for the Ring of Honor things, because that is what really matters here. We had 2 title changes, both involving the same group, but Daniel Garcia ended up winning the Pure Championship after defeating Wheeler Yuta, and they rematch and have a trilogy bout here tonight. And Claudio Castagnoli, who won the Ring of Honor World Championship at Death Before Dishonor, ended up losing the Ring of Honor World Championship at Grand Slam to Chris Jericho, who would start his first Ring of Honor title reign. And it is crazy to say he would have one more Ring of Honor title reign, hopefully never to have it again, but crazy to say in hindsight. But his first title reign, in my eyes, there's a lot of things. Let's dive into it, because he had matches. I liked his first title reign because he was trying to end wrestling. He was trying to end Ring of Honor, sports entertainer. I didn't like that stuff. But the essence of this title reign was him defending against former champions from Ring of Honor history, whether they be world, tag team, or television champions. Bandito's first match in AEW was against Chris Jericho for the Ring of Honor World Championship. Again, he had the match at Supercard of Honor where he lost it, so I guess it was his title rematch, and he ended up losing. Again, kind of fitting that in Jericho's second title reign, Bandito's the one that ended it, and we're still enjoying that title reign to this day. It is still going on right now, and it's been very great thus far. He had a match with Dalton Castle, which out of the matches that I'm going to talk about is kind of the least important to talk about. He had a match with Tomohiro Ishii, which is most notable for Ishii chopping him so much that his chest started to bleed. We had a controversial matchup. I talked about Brawl Out, and one of the main characters of that incident and everything that came out of that was Colt Cabana. So it was a matchup that was like, oh my God, Colt Cabana's here. Why is this happening? And the match is going on, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? If you know, you know. Long story short, Colt Cabana went into the match banged up and did not deliver a good matchup. And people, look, they're like, why the fuck did this happen? I didn't want to drop an F-bomb, but that was what y'all were thinking. And lastly, this is the matchup that pissed, this is not all his title matches. These are the notable ones. This is the one that pissed me off the most. Everybody's probably pissed off by the Colt Cabana match. This is the one that pissed me off the most. I've waited to talk about this, and I've talked about it several times on the channel before. Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, 3. They're tied 1-1. If we're being honest, it should have been 2-0 Danielson. It should have been 3-0 Danielson. But we have this Ring of Honor World title match. Bryan Danielson, one of the greatest wrestlers in Ring of Honor history, to many, the greatest wrestler in Ring of Honor history. I'm not one to argue. He cut this passionate promo talking about how much the Ring of Honor World Championship has meant to him. And he was champion before, obviously. And I believed in him. And I really wanted him to win. I also forgot to mention that one of the catalysts, quote unquote, for Jericho being Ring of Honor World Champion was, oh, Jericho's a viable name. ROH can get a TV deal out of this. Spoiler alert, that still to this day has not been the fucking case. But that's a topic. It's not really a topic for another day. It's not the case. It didn't work. I thought Danielson could be that same way, viewed that same way as well. You know, maybe there's some differences, but when you look at Ring of Honor, you think of Ring of Honor, Bryan Danielson is one of those people that you would think of, and I really wanted him to win this championship back, and he didn't because Daniel Garcia cost him because he was teasing, joining the Blackpool Combat Club just for it to be a swerve and stay with the Jericho Appreciation Society, and it is something that really, I can't say necessarily affected his career, but a lot of people have talked about the ups and downs in DG's career, and people do circle back to how much he would have benefited being in the Blackpool Combat Club at that point, and just for him to go back to the Jericho Appreciation Society and do the same thing and not really translate that well. But all in all, I am still pissed off to this day that Danielson did not win the Ring of Honor World Championship from Jericho and did not have a Ring of Honor World Championship reign in 2022. I think AEW fans and fans would argue, well, if that was the case, he wouldn't have had that match with MJF at Revolution, which is probably MJF's best matchup. I don't care. I would rather have seen Danielson as ROH World Champion. But that's just me. I'm an ROH homer. So those are the most notable things to discuss. Now, back to the original subject, things that happened that week on AEW Dynamite / Rampage, because I'm used to the ROH pay-per-views being on Friday night, and so I thought it was going to be conflicting Rampage, Final Battle, but no, this was a Saturday afternoon show, because it started at 3 o'clock, so it did not conflict. So, that week on Dynamite, we had the Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royal. They did not label it the Dynamite Dozen. It was the Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royal. Won by Ricky Starks. And you probably remember, like, I do not remember him winning this and being the champion. Because the next week, he would have a title match with MJF where he put up his Diamond Ring. MJF put up his World Championship. MJF just won the championship. As much as we love Ricky Starks. Some of you love Ricky Starks. Some of you might not. Ricky Strokes. MJF would win and keep the Diamond Ring. I want, because it's still the case today, I'm pretty sure he still has this damn Diamond Ring. I want at some point him to move on from that. And we get somebody else with it, and that way we get a big moment. Because every year that this has happened, it's been MJF that has won it and gotten it. I wanted a different result. And I obviously knew once it ended up getting tied in with the title picture, that was over and done with. I kind of wanted Adam Cole last year because it's the same thing that happened where they were in the quote-unquote finals. It's also a funky situation to where they insert MJF in because he doesn't necessarily always compete in the Battle Royal, but they insert him in to be face the guy that should have the Diamond Ring. And it's just one of those occasions. I'm rambling. It doesn't matter. But the next week's show was Winter is Coming, MJF, Ricky Starks. Samoa Joe defeated Darby Allin in the first of 3 TNT title matches. They had a great trilogy, and I think the other 2 matchups are kind of more notable because those involve title changes, but that was a good rivalry to have. The Acclaimed defeated FTR, and then post-match, the Guns are backstage, and they have Christmas gifts for FTR, and it is a letter written in blood challenging FTR to a dog collar match at Final Battle that Friday. And I do have a funny story because I remember this moment specifically. I had Dynamite on. This is back in 2022. I had Dynamite on, and for some reason I had it on mute. I think I was on the phone with somebody. But I had it on mute. And so I looked away, and I saw the Guns there with the letter, and they had the dog collars up. And I was like, damn, this is a crazy-ass match to have. The Guns and FTR, the dog collar. And it was legitimately not until that Thursday that I realized it's Briscoes FTR in the dog collar match. And I was like, makes a lot more sense. And fuck yes. And we'll get to that when we get to that. Quickly going through Rampage, Hikaru Shida took on the Bunny. Jon Moxley took on Konosuke Takeshita. And in the main event, weird-ass main event, Orange Cassidy versus Kip Sabian's mystery opponent, Trent Seven. So there is that. So we've went through these preview notes. We do need to go through the 0 hour, which I will also say, spoiler alert, not on Honor Club. I had to go. I logged on to Honor Club. It started the pay-per-view, and I'm like, where the hell is the 0? Because all the other shows, or the ones that I have watched at least, the 0 hour has been attached to. So Death Before Dishonor, like all the other shows have had the 0 hour attached. This one did not. So I had to go to YouTube for that. We've got 4 matches to discuss on this pre-show. The first one, a bit of an odd match, but it was probably the best one out of the pre-show matches. Mascara Dorada versus Jeff Cobb, also known as JC Mateo, and it's the first time that I've said that because I've just referred to him as Jeff Cobb since then. I'm trying to multitask, so let's go ahead and start this matchup. Y'all been looking at this for 20 minutes. I apologize. I'm a bit rusty. So, pre-show match, Mascara Dorada versus Jeff Cobb. Commentary mentions that Jeff Cobb never got a rematch for the television television championship that he had lost in May, maybe June of 2019. It was a 4-way matchup, I remember. And it immediately made me realize that Jeff Cobb and Samoa Joe would have been a great matchup to have on the show. And a matchup that, we can't get now. So I'm a bit salty about that. Dorado with an early arm drag, but Cobb catches him with a crossbody to the outside. Cobb keeps him grounded in the ring. Mascara Dorada delivers a 630 to the outside and a springboard swanton in the ring for a 2 count. Cobb catches him after another dive attempt, and his attempt of the Tour of the Allens is reversed into a Dorada roll-up, but a second time around, Cobb is able to land an elevated Tour of the Islands and pick up the victory. Cheeseburger and Eli Isom take on Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange of the Jericho Appreciation Society. Parker and Isom start the matchup off after a code of honor, and we get a very long code of honor as Parker and, oh my God, Angelo Parker, Matt Menard. They got so many damn names. It's hard to keep up with it. But Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange take turns, a long time, what I'm getting at, doing the code of honor. They get the advantage over Cheeseburger once he tags in, and they dominate the matchup, winning off a double DDT. Trish Adora takes on Willow Nightingale next. We got a technical start between the two with a head scissors exchange. Adora retaliates with chops and forearms, while Willow lands a pair of lariats. Adora's submission maneuver is transitioned into a suplex and a 2 count, and then Willow delivers the pounce! Period, and the Babe with the powerbomb to pick up the victory. As the last pre-show matchup is the Kingdom versus Top Flight. And this is a weird time period because the Kingdom had recently just debuted in AEW after they spent a couple months in TNA. And I talked about this in my other retro reviews for ROH, that no one remembers Honor No More. I'm not going to say no one. Very few people remember Honor No More and what came of that. But essentially, once ROH closed, a handful of ROH talents left and went to TNA, then Impact, and formed Honor No More, and the Kingdom were 2 of those people. And after they were done, which was, I believe, at Bound for Glory, like a month and a half prior to this, they were back at AEW, or they were in AEW and back in Ring of Honor. So I guess that retaliation kind of didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Dante and Mike start the matchup off, but Tavid sneak attacks early on. Dante reverses out of a proton pack, but still eats a Bennett forearm afterwards. Bennett breaks up the pinfall attempt of after Dante's tornado DDT. We get a Spicoli driver and rolling knee that gets a 2 count, and then Taven and Dante both do dives to the outside. At this point, Maria tries to cause a distraction, but the referee is paying attention, and she is ejected. And then Top Flight went off of a moonsault blockbuster that was pretty insane. So, interesting 0 hour, to say the least. It's also interesting with the Kingdom and Top Flight because they spun this off into a rivalry on ROH TV that it's kind of weird to say if you can't really say it was ever resolved because Dante ended up getting injured, and so they replaced Dante in this rivalry. Well, the Kingdom took responsibility for injuring him, even though it was a crazy-ass moment that happened at Super Card of Honor that injured him. But they replaced Dante with Action Andretti, and so it somewhat still happened. Now we're on to the main card. And another tag team matchup to talk about. Roosh and Dralistico making his Ring of Honor debut, taking on AR Fox and Blake Christian. And this is a matchup that y'all might have heard some other things about, but I'm not going to dwell too into that because if you know, you know. Just know this is a very aggressive matchup for the members of LFI. Dralistico starts the matchup off with Christian after they reverse one another. And then it really heats up when Roosh and AR Fox tag in with thunderous chops and forearms. Roosh continues this with tossing Christian around the ring into the barricades, all 4 sides of the ring as well. The intensity continues once they're back in the ring. Fox dives out of the ring, I guess, to somewhat avoid this intensity. Christian hits a DDT, and Fox hits a 450 splash for a 2 count. But the referee rings the bell, and it's the end of the match. Kind of a chaotic matchup, like I said, and chaotic finish. And LFI were not happy about this afterwards and ended up attacking Fox and Christian. It was a weird finish, a weird matchup, but I always enjoy seeing LFI and AR Fox, so nothing really too chaotic to think about. So now we have our first of several title matches and a matchup that is historic. And I'm going to give you all a bit of a spoiler alert behind the scenes. They talked about this matchup on ROH recently. Or last year when ROH was doing their retro matches. This is one of the matches that they did. And I'm pissed off because now I cannot find it in my notebook. But I did not rewatch this match. I went back to my old notes. So This is very unprofessional, I will admit. Because I cannot find it in the fucking notebook. This has been embarrassing. Okay. There it is. Found it. Boom. Like I said, this is an important matchup. Because it is the matchup in which Athena wins the oh, Jesus Christ. This is embarrassing. And I'm sweating. This is the matchup where Athena wins the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. Which I guess, I can't even really say it's a spoiler, because she still has this title to this day. 900 plus days later, she is still the champion. My champion, our champion. Let's hype her up. But, for the Ring of Honor Women's Championships, it's Mercedes Martinez and Athena. And spoiler, like I said, I watched this ROH TV episode 87. These are the notes from that matchup. I had the matchup plan. I just didn't rewrite the notes. I do want that. I should have reiterated that. So, if I noticed anything different, I would have wrote it down. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Martinez starts the matchup off with big forearms, then the two exchange forearms against one another. Martinez applies a STF that Athena fights out of and hits a meteor to the outside. Athena lands a big powerbomb after the two were battling on the top rope. Martinez's brainbuster gets a 2 count. Athena lands a backdrop on the apron. Martinez lands an anarchy suplex on the outside, with Athena getting back in the ring at the count of 9. It's not the first time. This is the first time it happens on the show, but not the last time. Ring of Honor, there's a 20 count. They should have reiterated that. But it's just the rules that they're used to, I guess. Martinez tries to apply the Brass City Sleeper, but Athena bites her way out of it. The turnbuckle pad comes loose, flying into the crowd, with the important note being that it is exposed. Athena lands a big dropkick, sending Martinez into it, and follows it up with the O-face, and gets the victory. And like I said several times, started her historic Ring of Honor Women's title reign that is still going on to this day. And there's a chance that soon she's adding another championship to her collection, because she does have a AEW Women's title match coming up soon. And we'll be rooting for her in that matchup. It's actually next week. It's very weird. I'm pretty sure Forbidden Door is this next weekend. So it's just not a lot of matches. That is one of the few matches that is announced at this point. So there is that. And we have no clue if and when Athena's Ring of Honor Women's title reign will come to an end. So now we have such a fascinating matchup to discuss. It's a tag team matchup. I gotta pull my stream back up. I hate doing this part. Very unprofessional, but we're a bit rusty. I hate doing this part. All right. Very unprofessional. Shane Taylor and JD Griffey versus Swerve in Our Glory. Shane Taylor and Keith Lee used to be tag partners in Ring of Honor, the Pretty Boy Killers to be exact. And they had a tag team title opportunity lined up, and Keith Lee left Ring of Honor and somewhat left Shane Taylor. And it's something that lingered in the back of Shane Taylor's mind. And again, I would imagine that he was pretty pissed off seeing Keith Lee is in the same company as him. And he's got another tag team partner, also named Shane, but, he goes by Swerve. But it is Shane Taylor wanting to get retaliation for what Keith Lee had did to him in a prior life. The fascinating thing about this, and I remember it at the time, I had no clue who JD Griffey was. I would Google JD Griffey's name, and nothing would pop up. And he made an appearance to promote this match with Shane Taylor, and I was like, okay, that's who that is. And spoiler alert, I have not seen another JD Griffey match since this. And I will be the one to say that I know that we live in a world where WWE and UFC, shout out to them and their new broadcast deal, should benefit the fans, hopefully, but I feel there's something fishy about that. But back what I was saying, WWE and UFC are under the same umbrella. But one of my opinions is that wrestling and MMA, while they are very similar, it's very difficult to mix them together and it work. And this is one of those occasions where I felt it didn't work because JD Griffey, I don't know if he's an actual MMA fighter, But all of his offense was MMA. Like the way he was dressed, he's got the shorts with the sponsors on them. He's got the gloves. He doesn't wear shoes. He's trying to be an MMA fighter. He might be a real life MMA fighter, but again, like I told you, I had Googled him before. Nothing effing popped up. And it blew my mind. It is the main thing that I took away from this matchup. So Shane Taylor and JD Griffey taking on Swerve in Our Glory. Taylor and Lee, like I said, I already went over that part. But Griffey and Swerve start the matchup off. And Griffey's MMA leads the start of this matchup off with several chokehold attempts. And that stuff does not work on Keith once he tags in. And so Taylor tags in as well. Taylor hits a leg drop on the apron, and then the two former partners collide with a big forearm exchange. Lee catches Griffey's dive to the outside, which in MMA you obviously can't do that because he caged in. While Taylor catches Swerve with a cutter for a 2 count. Lee breaks up JD's triangle choke with a moonsault, with all 4 men starting to brawl at this point. But Keith Lee accidentally hits Swerve. This leads to him walking out of the matchup, and so Keith Lee is left on his own. And then Griffey ends up doing the same thing, accidentally hitting Taylor, and Lee wins the matchup with a big bang conspiracy. Again, this is a matchup that has lingered in my mind for several reasons. One, it's the official start and breakup of Swerve in Our Glory, and I mentioned that this is one of my favorite tag teams, so I didn't necessarily like that, but seeing what Swerve has done since then, you kind of understand it. It would not be the last that these two team together, because in 2023 they did the blind eliminator tag. Oh hell no, no. I'm so sorry that happened. I want to skip through it that way. I ain't gotta see it. All right. They did the blind tag team tournament that MJF and Adam Cole ended up winning, but Swerve and Our Glory reunited for that. As much as they didn't really want to do it, they ended up doing it. So this is not the last that they team together, but it's just like this matchup is stuck in my mind because I remember this performance and JD Griffey and not knowing, like, is anybody else witnessing it? Because I just feel this is a moment that is forgotten in history, but it is something that, I felt needed to be talked about. And it's the last time that Swerve competed in ROH. Keith Lee would return at next year's Final Battle to take on Shane Taylor in a one-on-one matchup, which I would say that should have happened here, but I'm glad that we got Swerve on the show as well, so I'm not going to be harp on it too much. So now we have another tag team matchup taking place. This one for the 6-man tag team titles. Dalton Castle and the Boys taking on the Embassy before they are the Mogul Embassy. And this is before Swerve starts the Mogul affiliate. Oh my God, Mogul Affiliates, Mogul Enterprises, with the guy that was in NXT and some other person that the guy that had all the tattoos on his face that everybody was like, who the fuck is that? And before they have a short-lived time and then turn it to the Mogul Embassy, and he gets paired with Prince Nana, which again, he still is to this day. I know that this is only 3 years ago, but some of the stuff is still connected. 6-man tag team title match. Dalton Castle and the Boys taking on the Embassy. Castle and Khan start the matchup off after no code of honor. The Boys have to work together to get anything done against their opponents. This slows down once Toa splashes Brandon Tate on the apron. Castle tags back in, delivering a German suplex and throwing the Boys onto the Embassy members on the outside. Cage hits a drill claw on Brandon, but Castle makes the save on the pinfall attempt. Before Castle could do anything else, Prince Nana distracts him, and Castle and Brandon are knocked into each other and onto the outside. And the Embassy win the matchup after an elevated triple power bomb. And they go on to have a pretty good 6-man. The second was kind of quick and nothing as important. I did enjoy their first, which is this one, 6-man tag team title run. And I hate that they had such a weird breakup to where they didn't really have a breakup, if I'm being honest. Because Brian Cage started teaming with Lance Archer, the Murder Machines, and then the Gates of Agony, they were still a team, obviously, and they just never really acknowledged that, oh yeah, this isn't a thing anymore. But the Gates of Agony are back on TV at least, and they're paired with Ricochet. And if they have an official group name, they have not said it yet. So there's that. Pure title match. Daniel Garcia versus Wheeler Yuta 3. Jet for Honor, Wheeler Yuta 1. The Dynamite after All Out. Daniel Garcia won, and that was where he won the Pure Championship. And this is their third and final bout. These two men could have been representing the Blackpool Combat Club, but as I previously mentioned, Garcia turned on Danielson and reunited with the Jericho Appreciation Society. And the Jericho Appreciation Society members, 2.0, are interrupting Top Flight's backstage interview, and it leads to the two sides brawling and onto the stage where Dante Martin dives onto them. It was kind of a weird thing that wasn't necessarily needed. This is another thing. I want to propose this. How many people, I guess, I just fully imagine that if you watch the pre-show to this, you watch the main, or if you are watching the main card, you watch the pre-show. So I didn't really know, this never really leads to anything. It just leads to something right here. So I just kind of felt this was a bit unnecessary, and they just needed a way to get 2.0 out there, which the Deadass just could have accompanied him, but it was what it was. It is a pure title matchup. It's a pure rules matchup. Rope, you get 3 rope breaks, no closed fist. You get a warning after you do a closed fist. The judges, Christopher Daniels, BJ Whitmer, and Jerry Lynn. I've been waiting to do that. Immediate forearm exchange leads to the two starting to brawl, where a forearm exchange starts to end with both men using a closed fist and getting a warning. Yuta's face is pressed into the turnbuckle, and then he tries to do the same thing, and he does. Garcia applies a submission maneuver on Yuta in the ropes, forcing Yuta to use his first rope break attempt, and then quickly does it again with a surfboard, so Yuta is already down to rope breaks. Garcia's foot stomp gets a 1 count. Garcia's Dragon Sleeper uses Yuta's third and final rope break. Garcia applies a sharpshooter with Yuta turning it into a crossface. Both land big drop kicks. Yuta hits an angle slam, but Garcia gets his knees up on the frog splash attempt. Then he hits a pile driver afterwards. Garcia applies a sharpshooter, but Yuta has to crawl to the outside to break up the submission because he is out of rope breaks. Yuta hits a tombstone in the ring and follows it up with a series of elbows that Garcia gives up on, passes out from, and Wheeler Yuta once again becomes the pure champion. There's no code of honor, but Garcia at least acknowledges him by handing him the title over. I enjoyed Garcia's time with the pure title, but as I've been previously bitching about, him rejoining the Jericho Appreciation Society, that's what ends up happening afterwards with this. So we are here. This is the main reason we're here. I will admit, assholishly and selfishly, I don't know why I refer to it as that. Selfishly of me, I was watching this show and I was like, can we just get to that tag team title matchup? At the time, I was kind of the same way, but more so because I've seen the show when it happened. I've definitely watched it back at least once or twice because of this matchup. Let's get to that tag team title matchup, and we are here for the third and final time. FTR taking on the Briscoes. I told you it was a short mention match, but the stakes are very high, as it is the first time a double dog collar match, if you will. Let's set this matchup up on the screen, and then it obviously sucks balls that the Briscoes aren't in Fight Forever, and hopefully if AEW does a second game, they can somehow get them into the game. I also should mention, because I missed it on my preview notes because I was looking at something else, and y'all can see my other arenas that I have. PWG WIP, that means work in progress, but there's nothing really much else that I could change there. So you're seeing some behind the scenes stuff. What was I getting at? I should have mentioned, once the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega came back, because I was trying to gloss over the whole brawl out thing. Obviously, the Elite, everybody that was involved in it got suspended, and once the Elite came back, they were trying to capture their trios titles back that they had to relinquish, and by doing so, they started the best of 7 series with the Death Triangle. So I did. That had already started, and at Winter's Coming, that was matchup 4. So they had already had 3 matchups. So I did gloss over that in my preview notes, but I made up for it here. That doesn't matter right now. What matters is Briscoes FTR 3 dog collar match. Cash and Mark are together, while Dax and Jay are together, chained together, I should say. That's a game. I could have made a joke. I don't really have a good joke. Immediately, they go to the outside where Mark is busted open early and chairs are tossed around. Cash and Mark are fighting on the stage while Jay and Dax are fighting in the crowd. Dax is hit several times with a chain to the face while Cash starts to drag Mark around on the outside. FTR land the Doomsday Device for a close 2 count, and then Mark wraps the chain around his fist or his arm to deliver a froggy bow that gets a 2 count on Cash. Mark gathers several chairs on the outside, and then Dax wraps his chain around his head to deliver a headbutt, which he had difficulty doing because he's already busted open. And I would imagine there's probably like second thoughts, like, I don't know if I should do this, but he ends up doing it and delivering a vicious headbutt. Mike Posey, the referee, is then pushed into the way that Dax is trying to hit Jay, and he ends up getting busted open, so the referee is getting in on the action. With a back suplex on the apron for Mark, attempting the Doomsday Device, Dax tosses Mark onto the chairs on the outside, which is the craziest thing that happened in this matchup, I guess you could say, because it is a brutal and far-ass fall. In the ring, Jay lands a Jay Driller that gets a 2 count. Several chair shots are delivered at this point afterwards by Jay. Dax ends up hitting a pile driver on a chair for retaliation and getting a close 2 count. And then the chairs are moved into the ring. The pile of chairs are moved into the ring with Jay landing a top rope suplex that gets a close 2 count. And then he applies a crossface using the chain on Dax. And Dax has to give up as Cash is unable to reach him, ending this trilogy, ending this matchup, and getting the Briscoes their 13th Ring of Honor Tag Team title reign. Whew! I love this matchup. I love this trilogy as many times as I could say it. It's such a great-ass trilogy that the 4 men involved ended up getting Jazzware Vault exclusive figures out of it, which I do have the Briscoe. The moment those Briscoe figures released, I ordered those motherfuckers. FTR, as much as I do enjoy them, I did not. I will. This is a little side tangent. I did order the Sting 3-pack, and that set me back a little bit. So at some point, if the FTR figures ever go on sale, I'll try my damnedest to get those, just so they go with the Briscoes. Also, side note, I still have them in the pack because they're limited number. I just wanted to keep them in the pack. But it ends up becoming a sad thing in realizing, because sadly Jay Briscoe would end up passing around a month later, and just, it's something that still has me, I don't know, the best. Fucked up is kind of the way I would describe it, because I love Jay Briscoe and I love the Briscoe brothers, and I have always thought and think that the Briscoes are the best tag team. 110% are the best tag team in Ring of Honor history, and the way you got to look at it, this is their last matchup that they had in ROH, and when you going back and watching it back, you're like, damn, you just don't realize this stuff, and it's something that is hard to get over. I hate on AEW TV that the way that they mention Jay Briscoe is like in rival, like, because they did it for months with Chris Jericho mentioning Jay Briscoe, and now again they're doing it with MJF mentioning Jay Briscoe, and oh, your brother Mark, you're not your brother, and just, they never raise him up, they never praise him. It's always in taking a shot at Mark, and that pisses me the fuck off. I know, it's okay. I don't think it's okay, actually. I really don't think it's okay. It still pisses me off. I hate that they do that. I would just, leave it alone. But obviously that has not been the case. It is what it is. This is a hard match. Again, it's a hard match and a hard thing to discuss, but, we can at least say that and celebrate that we cover this trilogy on the channel. And another thing, and this is an important week to discuss this. This is the height of the Ring of Honor tag team division. And outside of the Briscoes and Steen and Generico, because I do really think that rivalry comes close to what this one did. Because they had more than a trilogy match. They had several important matches. And that's a good debate to have at some point. Briscoes versus FTR, Briscoes versus Steen and Generico. It's a good debate to have. I do think this is the height of the tag division. They main evented a pay-per-view They were the things to like when these three pay-per-views happened. These were the three most important things that happened and came out of them, and obviously they've become thing of legends. Since then, the tag division has just been in a weird ass spot. The titles become vacant, and the Lucha Bros win them. I love the Lucha Bros. The way they just never defended the titles and never appeared with the tag titles. That's not necessarily their fault, but I don't know what the fuck happened there, if I'm being honest. They lose it to Aussie Open, who were starting to have a good title reign and could have had a good title reign, and it ended to MJF and Adam Cole. And Adam Cole is a Ring of Honor legend, so I'm not going to blame him and act like what happened was bad. And again, it becomes weird because Adam Cole and MJF were a part of the biggest thing going on AEW TV. And so attaching the tag titles you would think would be a good thing. And to be honest, it really wasn't. This is again, when I'm starting the Ring of Honor TV reviews on the channel, I had always thought that they would have at least one matchup on ROH TV, one appearance on ROH TV, and it never happened. And I swear, if I was to ask Tony Khan about it now, he would say, well, they were, but Adam Cole got hurt. And this is obviously the devil angle, something that, again, that's been discussed hundreds of times, and people are just getting over it and don't care about it anymore. I understand. I call bullshit on that. I don't think that they care that much to have them appear on ROH TV, but they also had weird-ass pay-per-view matches for the ROH tag titles because, you know, legendary teams have had these tag titles, and none of the matches they had on pay-per-view were with legendary teams. Let's put it that way. Then the Devil Angle happens, and the Kingdom win the tag titles, and I can only really hype that up because they at least defended and appeared on ROH TV with them, where the previous reigns, you couldn't really say that was the case. Then, holy shit, Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes win the tag titles. And I like Dustin Rhodes. Sammy's in. For no reason should they have had these titles over a year. And the reason I said this is an important week to discuss it, because last week, 2 weeks ago now, Dustin Rhodes got hurt and had to have surgery. He's still the Ring of Honor tag team and six-man tag titles, which that's a story for a different day. And we don't really know what the fuck the future is for these tag team titles. But that Briscoes FTR stuff is the height of it, and everything afterwards has just not came close. And they've, just being honest, not really tried to. You could argue with the Adam Cole and MJF stuff because, like I said, that was the main thing going on in AEW, and so having the tag titles attached to it, you know, makes them a big deal. But just in-ring-wise, story-wise, and just greatness-wise, this is the peak for it. Also, it's probably my favorite match. I don't know. I go back and forth between the first match and this matchup and which one's my favorite. Again, the beauty of it is if you talk about this trilogy with several people, each of them will give you different answers. I go back and forth on if I enjoy the first matchup or this one the most. If you were to ask me, I'd probably say this one because the Briscoes win it, but the first matchup is great as well. And then, again, other people would say, well, I enjoyed the Just Before Saunders match. It was the main event. They treated it as the main event. There's great moments in it. That's the beauty in it all. So I am glad to say I covered this trilogy on the channel because I felt it was important to do. And hopefully at some point on the channel I discuss the Briscoes Steen Jericho rivalry because I just went on that tangent about it as well. So I knew I was going to get very into this discussion, and I did. Let's finish the rest of the show. We got one more page of notes to go through. 2 more title matchups. For the TV title, Samoa Joe takes on Juice Robinson. Thing 1, already mentioned it. This should have been Samoa Joe and Jeff Cobb. I don't know why commentary mentioned, Jeff Cobb, you should face for the TV title. And I thought that would have been a way better matchup, but can't dwell on that too much. Thing 2, and this is more important. Speaking of commentary, they mentioned Juice Robinson's previous ties to Ring of Honor because in 2019, after the Elite had left ROH to form AEW, a bunch of new talent came into ROH, and 2 of those people were David Finlay and Juice Robinson. And to be honest, the big angle that was going on was a faction named Lifeblood. You had Tenille Dashwood, you had Tracy Williams, you had Mark Haskins, you had Bandito, you had Juice Robinson, you had David Finlay. I think somebody else got added later on. Point being, their point was to add life back into Ring of Honor, bring joy back to bring Ring of Honor back to the way it was. And Juice Robinson and David Finlay's time in the group was short effing lived. Now, the way that I understood it when it happened, because they were New Japan talents. That's kind of the main thing I should probably point out as well. Whenever they didn't have stuff in New Japan, they'd be competing in ROH. Point being, this shit lasted like 4 months with Juice and David Finlay because they were done after G1 Supercard. And from the point that I understand it was they didn't like what the hell was happening. The way that commentary discussed it, Juice Robinson was hurt, which I call a little bit bullshit with that because I remember a Juice Robinson-John Moxley matchup that happened soon after, and that was a big deal because of John Moxley's first matchup after leaving WWE, etc. It's also, they mentioned like Juice Robinson's resume outside of New Japan, or resume in New Japan to hype up this matchup. Point being, I don't have a problem with Juice Robinson, but I do think about like Lifeblood a lot and how quickly they had to change the direction of the group. And I think that Samoa Joe should have faced somebody else on the show. So let's get over that. I will also mention this is during Joe's reign as the undisputed king of television. Speaking of television and Samoa Joe, I've yet to start season 2 of Twisted Metal. And I enjoyed season 1 mainly because of Samoa Joe's presence. I imagine that will be the case with season 2. And who knows, that might be what I do after filming this and uploading this. So, shout out to Samoa Joe. Everybody loves Samoa Joe. Juice is aggressive early until Joe catches him in a coquina clutch early. Then the two are on the outside where Juice like pushes off of the ring apron and both men collide into the outside guardrail. In the ring, Joe lands a Uranagi and back to the outside with a dive. The two exchange punches in the ring. A Robinson crossbody gets a 2 count. Then Joe applies a crossface with Juice having to crawl to the ropes. Juice climbs to the top rope just for Joe to knock him into the position to apply a muscle buster and pick up the victory. A continuous reign as the undisputed king to television. Spoiler alert! Samoa Joe never ended up losing the TV title. He ended up vacating it. That way he can go win the AEW championship, which I remember at the time being pissed off. I'm not going to say pissed off about it. I was a little pissed, more so confused. Looking at how everything happened now, look at everything now, I understand why. You don't need him to lose the ROH TV title if he's going to win the AEW World title. Sidebar, as much as I love Samoa Joe, I would have had Juice Robinson beat MJF at Full Gear and then him lose it to Swerve at Dynasty. And then you could have Samoa Joe continue the TV title reign. Point being, I'm not going to lose sleep over it because Samoa Joe getting the AEW World Championship is something you necessarily would have expected to get, and you got it, and it was a moment in history. So there's that. Speaking of World Championships, it's our last matchup of the show to discuss. For the ROH World Championship is Chris Jericho defending against Claudio Castagnoli. Jericho won the Ring of Honor World Championship at Grand Slam. Claudio wants the championship back, and if he does not win, he might just join the Jericho Appreciation Society. I don't think we really want that, if we're being honest. No code of honor as Jericho tries to run away and Claudio catches him on the outside. We get a neutralizer in the ring that gets a close 2 count. Jericho's offense is overshadowed by his continuous taunting, doing the whole ear, listening to the crowd thing, which is a taunt that he does a lot on Fight Forever as well. Jericho delivers 10 punches in the corner and tries to follows it up with a top rope Hurricane Rana, Hurricane Rana. I'm just going to say it. I was going to say Steiner, but I'm just going to call it the Hurricane Rana. Jericho lands a suplex off of the apron, and both men get in at the count of 10, which again, it's a 20 count in ROH. They could have waited it out. We got a chop and forearm exchange with Jericho reversing a big swing attempt into a walls of Jericho until Claudio crawls to the bottom rope. 2.0 come out to distract the referee, and this leads to Jericho using Floyd, the baseball bat, and only getting a 2 count. He lands a code breaker and then is trying to hit the Judas effect, but Claudio reverses it into a big swing, and he does this big swing for 32 rotations before Jericho taps out from it, and Claudio wins the Ring of Honor World Championship back. It's a weird finish, but the way that you think of it is Claudio has a lot of way. Like, he could have won with the neutralizer. He could have won with the UFO, which is very rarely seen. Claudio has a lot of different quote-unquote signatures and finishers. So it's weird when it can just bust any of them out at any time. So this is one of those instances, but it's something that, is understandable. And I think people are more so just joyous that they saw a title change and that Jericho's reign came to an end. So there is that. There's that for this review or this show, as I'm going to probably continue on another side tangent. How long did we review? We reviewed for like 30 minutes, which is a bit crazy. So, all in all, it's an okay show. I had said several times that I feel that Death Before Dishonor, the previous Death Before Dishonor, was the better show. I don't know. I'm gonna have to really, because now I have already had seen every Tony Khan ROH pay-per-view. I don't know which one's the best. If you were just to ask me, I'd say Death Before Dishonor 2022, but I'd have to really sit back and think about it, and I'm not gonna do that now. That wouldn't be fair to y'all, because I'd probably give y'all a half-ass answer. I'm very hot. My ass is hurting because I've been sitting down for 55 straight minutes talking about Ring of Honor and other things. So I'm sorry for that long ass intro and tangent, but I just felt that this was a better time as of now than any to go into it. So there is that. So I am not guaranteeing it. I'm going to try my best. All I could do is try my best. Because I just want to talk about Ring of Honor on the channel for the time being. And that's my plan to do it. This week, we should have another ROH review. Retro review, I wish that Amos would quit freaking messaging me while I'm trying to deliver this outro. I have plans for other ROH retro reviews, but I don't want to leak them or talk about them and then not do them, because I just ended up doing that for 2 months with other retro reviews. So time will tell there. So we'll see what the future holds for the time being. But I've been here for all the other ROH reviews. I don't know why I wouldn't be here for the ones coming up. So I'll see y'all when I see y'all. I'm out for now. I do appreciate y'all for watching this. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. If y'all want to know who wins this one-on-one matchup, I'll comment down below. I'm out for now. Goodbye.